Baseball is back, and then it left, but it's coming back. Chicago Cubs dropped 2 games to Los Angeles Dodgers in Tokyo. Quite the spectacle. The stadium looked amazing. I'm sure the event and the people that traveled and spent, trust me, really good money to check out that game. I think they got their money's worth. Chicago Cubs lose the first game 4-1, lose the second game 6-3. If you didn't get the opportunity to watch the game, don't blame yourself. The game first pitch was at 5:10 a.m. Central Time. So we're going to play a little game of hot and cold here on Sports Talk Chicago, because let's be honest, here in Chicago, it's been really hot, and then also it's been cold. And today, while I'm taping it, it's been raining. So the most broad, easy, fundamental, simple way to break down, I'm going to go through each player on the Chicago Cubs, play a little game of hot and cold, and talk a little bit about these first 2 games. Because let's be honest, we got to wait another week now before they get a chance to play another game, get a chance to win a game, swing the bat, throw some strikes, all that good stuff. So it does open up the question that the situation that the Chicago Cubs were put in the first place, of course it wasn't an ideal scenario. Was it a once-in-a-lifetime experience? Absolutely. And hopefully it built some kind of camaraderie that helps further down the line for the Chicago Cubs. But you either won these 2 games, you'd be riding high, and Chicago Cubs fans would be talking themselves into 95 wins instead of 88 or 90. They lose these 2 games. Who does it affect more? Does it affect the players, or does the stink stay on the fans for the next week or so? I think it's going to land on the fans. When you play a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, but which, by the way, did not even trot out Mookie Betts or Freddie Freeman, they are an incredible baseball team. They are stacked and overflowing with talent. The over-under right now in Vegas for the Los Angeles Dodgers is to win 104.5 games this year. And that's a huge number, and I would actually probably trend towards the over on that. This team, health provided, the Los Angeles Dodgers, they could possibly win 110, 115 games this year. So to lose 2 to start off the season, is it the worst way to go? No. Obviously, there was a talent gap between the Chicago Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers just walking into it. And CHGO Sports' Cody DeMundo brought up a great point that the Chicago Cubs had to win this one on the margins. And there's a few things like defense, walks, timely hitting that simply didn't show up in these 2 games. And that's okay. I think Chicago Cubs fans are going to be stewing on this one a little bit longer than hopefully Chicago Cubs players are. So let's play a little hot and cold here of just what I thought. If you didn't get a chance to check out the games, I'm just going to give you a little tidbits of what I liked, what I didn't like from each player. And let's play a little game called Hot and Cold. Let's start first with Game 1 starter Shota Imanaga. If you look at the box score, he only made it through 4 innings. He did not give up a run. He did not give up a hit. But he got himself into a little bit of trouble. He walked a couple of guys, very uncharacteristic for Shota Imanaga. Not the most perfect start on the planet. But I will tell you, I walked away incredibly impressed with how Shota comported himself in that type of situation. So I'm going to go Shota Imanaga is walking out of this one hot. You could tell on the mound a couple of things I picked up. The first one was that Shota obviously brings a lot of passion and energy when he pitches when he's on the mound. But what I noticed was he was facially demonstrative on multiple different pitches throughout the early onset of that game. And part of that made me feel a little bit that him coming home and pitching in Tokyo, I think it meant a lot to him. And I'm not being hyperbolic by saying it, but you could tell he was wearing it a little bit. And the burden that he had to perform and produce out there, I think got him out of his stuff a little bit. He left some pitches up. He wasn't able to really drive pitches deep inside on right-handed hitters. And it was funny. He was very crafty about it. He started off with some more off-speed stuff and then tried to use the fastball as a weapon later in counts. They got some swings and some misses. So that part was a huge plus for me. But again, 4 innings, only 69 pitches. This is what you get when you have 2 teams play a full week to 10 days before the actual season starts. And look, this is Major League Baseball trying to grow the game. And would I have preferred these probably be exhibition games? I probably would. But of course, again, they don't make the same money on those ticket prices walking into that stadium if those games didn't count. So, from the Chicago Cubs' perspective, it wasn't the best hand in the planet because Shota Imanaga, who's probably a start or two away from actually beginning his regular season, most likely would be at 80, 90, 95 pitches by the time he makes his next start in the regular season. At this point in the year, in this part of spring training, they had to pull him after 69, and that's just the way it goes. And it is also another quick side note on this is that, in my opinion, this time of year in spring training, especially for the veterans, for the guys that are going to be counted on to hopefully take whatever team as far as they can go into the major league season, this is kind of the turning point in spring training. You come in, you work on a few things, you try and get your timing down, or if you're a pitcher, you work on a couple different pitches in different situations. Maybe you throw that extra slider that you normally wouldn't. But around this time is when they start game planning and putting together their real stuff that they want to take into the year. And the Cubs and Dodgers, had to play games that count at that particular turning point in spring training. So I walked away with Shota Imanaga as a hot for me. I thought he pitched really well. I thought it was good to see. Defense at times, look, we'll get to Ian Happ next, but Ian Happ almost catching a fly ball. He wasn't able to corral it. I think he trapped it a little bit, and then that's how the Dodgers scored one of their runs. It wasn't great on that side, so Shota a little bit of bad luck too as well. Ian Happ, I am going to stick with hot for Ian Happ, even though he possibly could have caught that ball. I thought he got on base. He did what he needed to do. He had a nice little opposite field single in this 2-game series. So don't worry about Ian Happ. Ian Happ looks fine. Larger issue, which I'm going to get into deeper into in a second, is does it serve the Chicago Cubs best by having him as their leadoff hitter right now? A question that will be answered in just a couple seconds, because let's move on to Seiya Suzuki, the DH for the 2 games. Didn't come up with a base knock. And this is another guy who I think felt some of the weight to produce and perform. And it was interesting. In his first at-bat against Yamamoto, he took a fastball and he hit it. Line drive right back to the fence, was on top of it. And then the rest of the bat didn't really go his way. So he had a moment early there. It just didn't really pan out for him. Seiya Suzuki is going to be a cold for me. And just look, 2-game sample size. This is all I'm saying right here. But Seiya Suzuki, for me, is one of the most talented hitters I've ever seen. Also put out some of the most useless at-bats you will ever witness. It really boggles my mind when a pitcher has his number, or when his timing isn't exactly where it needs to be. He struggles at times fighting off bad pitches, and his zone will expand, and you will see some silly, passive, half swing, full swings. And it's just interesting for a guy who is your 2-hitter, who I've always thought the guy could hit 30 home runs. The guy could hit 290, 300. He could drive in 90 runs. To this point in his career, he's been mostly a 270, 20 home run, 70-ish RBI guy. I think he is incredibly talented, and when he gets hot, watch out. But it is strange that every once in a while, he will just put up such a dud of an at-bat, an uncompetitive at-bat. And look, and this is the beauty of it, I suppose, is gets an opportunity to come back, get in the cage for a little bit, for about a week, and then everything starts all over again when the Cubs actually start their regular season like everybody else. Let's go to the big cheese, the big guy, Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, I'm going lukewarm on this one, right there in the middle. Didn't do much in the series, pounded a double off the wall that didn't turn into a run. The Cubs were already down 3 runs at the time. Good to see him get on base, get his base hit in the way. He also had a fly ball to the warning track, but you can tell that this guy isn't exactly locked in or isn't exactly timed up the way that I think we're about to see Kyle Tucker for majority of this Major League season. And again, I don't look at spring numbers until the bell rings, but this is a different situation because there still is a week left of spring training. So the fact that Kyle Tucker walked into this game with only 1 hit and I believe 20-something at-bats through spring training it isn't that big of a surprise he didn't do crazy damage in these two particular games. Because, again, this is the time when I think veterans like Kyle Tucker really start to drill in, find it, refine it, and get ready, and then unleash it in Major League season. But it was good to see him pound one off the wall. It was good to see him hit one to the warning track. I think better days and brighter days are to come for Kyle Tucker. Moving on to our cleanup hitter, Michael Busch. We're going to get a cold on this one. Michael Busch did not have a good series, and he has been hitting the ball on the screws all spring training long. There's two things that play a little bit here. First of all, I think Yamamoto for the Dodgers pitched very well. And in this particular situation, of all the Cubs hitters, he owned Michael Busch in his two at-bats. He was throwing this two-seam sinking fastball that Michael Busch couldn't touch and he could not resist to swing at. And that happens. And look, Yamamoto making big-time money. Roki Sasaki, their big major free agent acquisition. One of them, along with Blake Snell in the Dodgers rotation. The Dodgers are going to bring you elite talent at every position, especially the starting pitching position, every single night. So am I going to hammer on Michael Busch? No, but he did not have a good series. And when there's a pitcher that has your number, you know, it can be really difficult for you to be effective in any way. And one of those situations he did was able to work back to a 3-2 count. Good for him. But again, he's another guy a week later has got to show up, got to be ready to play, kind of wipe the slate clean on this one and start putting together good at-bats right away because he's our fourth hitter right now. Number 5, Matt Shaw coming in the chat. Matt Shaw making his Major League debut. I'm going to go cold with Matt Shaw because I'm going to be a tough grader because he's a rookie. And I think he deserves a ton of patience. So I don't want to be too critical on him, but it is going to be a cold for me. He didn't do much at the plate the first 2 days, and it was really interesting if you didn't get a chance to watch the game, that Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki on two separate occasions, they got to a 1-1 count. I think in one situation it was 2-1, and then they both dropped a curveball on Matt Shaw that froze him at the knees and went over for a strike to bring it to a 2-strike count. And then Matt Shaw had to play a little defense, wasn't able to get anything done. But it was so fascinating because both those pitchers hadn't thrown that pitch to that point in the game. And that's what's fun about baseball. And you have to realize from a starting pitcher's perspective, if you have more than 2 pitches, and some of these guys have 3, 4, Yamamoto I think might even have 5. When you have that array of pitches, early on in the game, I think you just want to get ahead with your fastball, maybe work another pitch, and see how long you can get away with that. You don't need to throw all of your pitches in the first inning. You don't need to show all of your cards to an opposing lineup in the first 3 hitters. And you can slowly incorporate pitches here and there just to throw them off a little bit in a count to get through an at-bat and to get an out. And that's exactly what they did with Matt Shaw. They didn't throw a single curveball to start each game, but then the 5-hitter comes up in the second inning, 1-1 count, rookie, roll a curveball up there for a strike. Matt Shaw didn't know what to do with it because he hadn't seen it before. And they rarely deployed it again. And those are going to be the kinds of games that Matt Shaw, as a rookie, is going to have to play in-game and then from series to series because this is a long, long, long journey. And for Cubs fans, I am asking you that let's give him plenty of time. He did not look impotent up at the plate. He didn't look lost. He battled and lost. That happens. So as long as that keeps happening, you have to hope that results will eventually come. Keep trying to hit the ball hard and see what happens. Cubs fans need to take it easy on this guy. Not that they're coming after him right now, but I'm just saying for a rookie, there's going to be peaks, there's going to be valleys. It's going to be really tough in moments, and then celebrate the good ones. And in this situation, I think he got a really good taste of Major League Baseball with Yamamoto and Sasaki. With the handful of bats that he got in Tokyo. To his credit, he looked great at third base. He had one play that he dirted a little bit. I thought Michael Busch possibly could have got in front of it. It ended up going to the screen. But in game 2, he came back, made a great diving stop, up right away, threw a guy out, looked great. And it was the type of play that, honestly, if we're going baseline here, Isak Paredes and Christopher Morel did not make that play once last year. Matt Shaw's already got one in his pocket, so good for him. Moving on to hitter number 6. And I'm going to take a detour after this one because Dansby Swanson is going to get a hot for me. I think the dude, when we talk about healthy and what he was dealing with last year with the knee, and then he had core surgery in the offseason, Dansby Swanson just looks like a different player right now compared to last year. Really nice to see him turn on a fastball, drive it down into the alley for a double, scoring Matt Shaw, picking up an RBI, and then in game 1, 2 as well, early on, took a pitch from Yamamoto, singled right back up to center field. So it was good to see Dansby get off to a good start, and he looks really smooth in the field right now. And I don't think this is going to turn into him being some sort of secret X factor difference maker. But I am saying we want the Dansby Swanson that we talked ourselves into when they signed him to that big deal 2 years ago. He can still be that player. And he's shown it so far through those 2 games, which is a great thing to see. But by and large, my first big takeaway is right now, they're 4, 5, 6. The cleanup hitter, number 5 and number 6 in the lineup right now is Michael Busch, Matt Shaw, and Dansby Swanson. I want to reserve judgment, but if you want to know my emotional state right now, that's a little terrifying. It's a little light. It's asking a lot to put Matt Shaw in the 5th spot right now. 5th spot is a 2-out rally in the first inning or guys on the pond. Michael Tucker working a walk, hitting a double. Michael Busch maybe hitting him over to second base. 2 outs. Matt Shaw, can you knock him in? It's an RBI spot in the lineup. So that 4, 5, 6 right there is really tough. And just my early blush takeaways for the Chicago Cubs is I think Ian Happ is a capable leadoff hitter. I just don't think the best thing for this lineup is to have Ian Happ at leadoff. Is there anybody in this lineup that can step up and maybe serve in that role and do it in a competent way where you can move Happ into the middle of the lineup because he's just consistent, he gets on base, and I think he's a guy who's ready to be in a position in the lineup to come up with some big hits and knock in some runs. But that 4, 5, 6 is tough. When you ask me pet theory who the leadoff hitter could be, it could be Michael Busch. Michael Busch put together a 775 OPS last year. He gets on base. He does work a count. A lot of swing and miss in there. But is he a type of guy that could possibly work that leadoff position to the point where you can then trade spots with Happ and make him a cleanup hitter? It could be Michael Busch. It should be PCA, but PCA is not ready yet for that. He has all the tools in the world. And by the way, PCA getting a cold through the first 2 games right here on Sports Talk Chicago. The leadoff hitter should and maybe eventually will be PCA. He's got all the pieces. He's got the energy. He's got the passion. The crowd's behind him. He's lightning fast. He could easily steal 30 to 40 bases this year. He can go from first to third. He can go from first to home. This is the kind of guy you want at the top of your lineup, but the dude can't work a walk right now. Didn't look great in these 2 games offensively. And he's got some progress to be made if he wants to be considered for that role. So there's candidates on this Cubs team to possibly have a leadoff hitter who isn't Ian Happ, and the only reason why I'm saying is because Ian Happ should be driving in runs in this lineup. Because it just starts to feel a little light. You got PCA at 7 on the cold. Let's go to number 8. Our 8-hitter, catcher, split both time. Game 1 was Miguel Amaya. He's getting a hot for me. Miguel Amaya banged an opposite field, smoked it into the gap for the Cubs' first run of the 2025 season. It was good to see it. Good carryover from spring training. He's been hitting well. And expectation-wise, what would hitting well be for Miguel Amaya? If he gives you 240, 250, and maybe bangs 15, 14 home runs, drives in 50 runs, we should all run to the window on that one, Cubs fans, and be happy about that. So it was good to see him get in the mix right away. Game 2, Carson Kelly. I got to go cold on this one. I'm sorry. As a former catcher, you got to catch the baseball. In Game 2, Justin Steele, we'll get to him in a second. let a run in on a pass ball on a very catchable pitch. This was not in the dirt. It was just a misplay. Just dropped it, got behind him, scored a run. So veteran guy, not going to be playing every single day. Here to be there for depth and balance. When you come in, you can't make those kinds of mistakes. I don't think Carson Kelly will be making them on the regular, but he gets a cold from me just because that's just the type of stuff. And that was the type of stuff through the 2 games. So when Cody Delmendo says they have to win on the margins, they have to catch the baseball and not let a pass ball like that happen. You know, John Birdie at second base tries to turn a double play, had no shot at turning it, threw it into the stands, cost them another run. So it's that little stuff right there. You have to play airtight against the Dodgers. Cubs simply didn't do it. Kelly's a cold for me. Then John Birdie. Again, John Birdie, I can't give him a hot, even though he had several hits in game 2. It was good to see while he's filling in for Nico Horner. But, man, on that play, you got to eat that ball. They were trying to turn the double play. The guy running and sliding into second base, he was on him already, and the dude at first was going to beat him out. No reason to try and turn that thing. You got to play the outs. You got to try and minimize damage against the Dodgers. It was a mistake. But early on, what do we talk about in the offseason? The Chicago Cubs are supposed to be great defensively. It's supposed to give them a competitive advantage, a little bit of an edge. And in this situation, it didn't help them. In fact, it was a net negative. And you can't do that against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the Chicago Cubs are now 0-2. Final one, or excuse me, we're going to do 2 more. Let's just talk Justin Steele. Justin Steele cold. Didn't have his best stuff. Don't know how I feel about the hair. The hair is very long. If you didn't get a chance to check out the 2 games, it's flowing. It's like Creedence Clearwater flowing. It's like 1970s rock flowing. I kind of liked the mullet, and we'll see how it plays out the rest of the year. But unfortunately, the long hair did not translate to a good performance. Justin Steele, he was topping around 91-ish, 92. That's pretty on par with Justin Steele and what you're going to get, but the repertoire just simply wasn't that crisp. He really bangs the ball inside and right-handers. Couldn't either get it for strikes or get them to bite or get it into a good situation. And then things got away from him just a little bit. The pass ball wasn't great. And then he gave up a home run to Ohtani, who, let's be honest here, or I'm sorry, Nate Pearson gave up a home run to Ohtani. Let's be honest, if you look at the replay, it was not a home run. But who am I to be bitter? Chicago Cubs 0-2. And then finally, the bullpen, the one that we've talked about all offseason. There's 2 ways to look at it. The first one is collectively outside of Ben Brown. They pitched 7 1/3 innings, only gave up 2 runs. Ben Brown gave up 2 runs in 2 innings. Again, with Ben Brown, I really like Ben Brown's stuff. And he struck out Ohtani. And when he was in the zone, the Dodgers were having serious problems with it. The only reason why I think it got away from him in this moment was you have to understand that even when you throw a ball, it has to be a competitive pitch. And a lot of Ben Brown's pitches, he was up in the zone, and he was so up in the zone that it wasn't even something that Dodgers hitters even had to contemplate. So you want to have competitive pitches, even if they're going to be balls, and his pitches were just uncompetitive out of the zone. It's pretty simple. It's something that he can easily correct, but that's just a little bit of how it goes, and that's why he got roughed up a little bit. Bullpen, for the most part, I think a lot of them got through it okay. It was not great seeing Ryan Presley walk 3 guys. If you were still trying to get over the trauma of Hector Neris, don't go back and watch Game 2 of this 2-game series in Tokyo, because Ryan Presley walked 3 guys. They walked 7, I believe, over the course of 2 days. Going to have to clean that up. Julian Merriweather, a guy that I was big on heading into spring training, a bounce-back candidate, also walked 2 guys. So plenty to refine and plenty to figure out. Chicago Cubs are 0-2, but that was my hot and cold list, just going up and down if you didn't get a chance to check the games. Chicago Cubs get a week off, and they come back, and then it's rock and roll, then it's every day, and then it's baseball, one of my favorite times of the year.